write about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just discount? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
That was great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ BlueZ. Easy, you are always better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us again on the broadcast today?
Everyone wears a mask. Everyone, the minute you put on your clothing to go to work, you're putting on your work drag. When you go and hang out with your friends, you're wearing your friends drag. Understand that everything you do in life is drag because you can't just walk around and be 100% yourself. You need to fit into these categories. So when I say this next entertainer is able to take drag to a level that I just love so much, adding that, I'll say, neurotic uncle aspect to it that I love, and it really almost gives you the talk show host type of vibe. So I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2 because we don't need any accidents. But mentally, please put your hands together for the fantastic, the amazing, the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious Frankie Cyanide is in the building. Welcome, Benvenue. How are you?
I am doing well. I am excited to be back. It's been like 3 years or something like that.
They remind me that I'm old. They keep reminding me that I'm old. You just it's been 3 years.
Honestly, I just think it's your victim mindset, man. It's an honor to be
oh, okay.
Yeah, if 3 years is the difference between young and old, then I don't know. You've got a very, very strict definition there, man.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true.
But one thing that does make me feel old is realizing that it is Pride season again. And I feel like we just recovered from last year's Pride season. And now look at that. It was 40 degrees last night, and now it's June.
Does the season ever end?
Okay. I mean, Pride is, a year-round thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to large outdoor events with a lot of people all at once trying to get your attention from all different sides while it's 85 degrees, that tends to be pretty centralized in June. So I am already preparing with my electrolytes for every single time that I'm out there in 2 inches of makeup that has 0 UV protection and dance like the monkey I am to entertain the crowds. I'm really excited.
First of all, why doesn't your makeup have UV protection? I figured that'd be one of the, especially if I'm doing it outdoors, and I'm starting to do outdoor performances this year, and I'm not wearing any sunblock or anything like that because I'm stupid. But if I had to wear some sort of makeup or stage performance stuff, it would be the UV protected because that makes sense to me. Especially, isn't that also the stuff that's sweat protected?
Oh yeah, no, it's not that it's completely not UV, but you can't reapply your sunscreen.
Right, that's true.
And so, it might be kind of protected when you put it on, but let's say that you've got a brunch at 11 a.m. and then after brunch, you've got something outside. And after that, you put on another layer of makeup on top of your sweaty, melted face, and you go dance for a bunch of people in a nightclub. So that UV protection really just is at the beginning because you spray on more and it all just melts right off, which could work if you're doing a Toxic Avenger look, but yeah, which now that I think of it,
yeah, that could be really interesting, and that's super interesting too. Because what I love about when you used to go through the State House and have your punk rock drag nights,
rest in peace.
Yeah, I know. But all of these amazing events that you would throw, drag was just such an open term. A lot of people think drag and they think, the most of drag they've been exposed to is they've seen the commercials for RuPaul's Drag Race.
Mhm.
And still, I'm not knocking it. You know, if that's how
I'll
you
knock
get
it.
it, but okay, that's fine. I happen to like some of the performances. It's, you know.
No, me too. It's just, there's been so many seasons, and I am too ADHD to be able to keep track of them all anymore.
I just honestly, I watch All Stars. It's just easier.
Okay, that's valid. There's far fewer people to keep track
Yeah,
of for that.
yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
diversity and drag.
yeah, diversity in drag, something that was the first time I was really exposed to, where you actually have drag kings, drag queens, and drag monsters. What
Drag
is
Hmm.
monsters.
Yes, drag monsters.
Break it down.
So
Break it
yes.
down.
Yeah, so drag monsters, drag things. There are other people that go by other titles that they feel like, but once you start getting too specific, then it stops really being a type and just is what you call yourself. But so not every drag performer is going to be within the gender binary. So a lot
Mhm.
of performers might identify more as just like, hey, I'm a sleep paralysis demon that you see when you eat too many pixie sticks before bed and you wake up with heartburn at 3 a.m. and I'm just looming over you. That's not a male or a female creature. That's just a concept, you know?
Right.
Or somebody might want to be just completely outside of the gender binary and not feel like the commitment that being a king or a queen really holds.
Mm. How do you navigate and redefine visibility in your craft?
Well, for me, I got laser eye surgery about a decade ago.
Mhm.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. Get visibility. Ha ha. Ha, 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 ha. So anyway, today is probably the fourth time I've been described as having uncle energy in the past
Okay.
2 weeks. I am really thriving in my uncle era. I was recently in my daddy era,
Mm.
but I realized that when people see you as a father figure, they start asking you for things. But when you are an uncle figure, they just expect you to show up and dance badly and embarrass people, and that's a lot more fun.
I agree.
But visibility in the scene, I think, when I only started drag when I was 26, which to me feels like that's a very young age, but in the drag scene is, I don't know, past ancient. And so growing up, I didn't realize that as a female born individual, as an AFAB person, that I had the option of doing drag. I had never seen the idea of a drag king. I had never seen a woman dressed up as a drag queen. Um, Most of my exposure was through Drag Race, which I did start watching during the first season. I mock it out of a place of having put up with it for so long. Um, but once I realized that I could, then suddenly I'm like, oh. And then at that point, anytime somebody's like, oh, that's not drag, oh, that's not drag. And I went, hey, guess what? I don't care
Right.
because I have no social skills anyway. So I'm just going to put on a funny outfit and go do my thing.
So help you broke out your shell.
Yeah, so I've got a show every week. It's
Mhm.
called Wacky Wednesdays. You can
Mhm.
guess what day of the week it's on. That's right, Monday. No,
Got you.
it's every Wednesday at 9 o'clock at Trevi Lounge in Fairfield, and that's been going on since February 2nd, 2022.
Okay.
Every single week, not a single week off, including last year. Christmas and New Year's were both Wednesdays, and we were open for both.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And we've got over a dozen performers every week. And it's not just drag queens and kings and things and monsters. We also bring in burlesque and singers and like acrobats, and somebody played the tuba. Um, just actually the tuba performance was to Pony by Genuine, and that was absolutely ridiculous. But there is so much queer talent in the world, of course, but also specifically within the Fairfield, New Haven, Northeast area. And
Right.
the closest open stage situation is either driving down to New York City somewhere. There's some open stages in Brooklyn, or going up to Hartford. And that's a trek for anybody who's down by the coast. It's a lot. And so every week we get over a dozen people. It is very often one of the busiest days of the week, or I guess nights of the week. And established performers come in, traveling performers who are just going to be around have come through. We've had Stacey Lean Matthews from RuPaul's Drag Race did a Wacky Wednesday last year, which was absolutely wild. And we've had other Drag Race queens have actually shown up in the audience. But being able to give a platform to different types of performers and not just what I personally listen to,
Right.
I've been to so many shows where I love seeing somebody do an 8 count to the latest Ariana Grande song or whoever's popular right now. It's great. Heck, I could see 2 or 3 performers doing an 8 count to the latest Ariana Grande release. But if every single performance I see is a carbon copy of each other, I'm going to get bored, even if they're all carbon copies of the exact same amazing thing. So I really like seeing things outside of what I personally might be performing,
I find that super, super interesting too, because that's the one thing that I love about drag for me and from my perspective. And again, I'm just someone on the outside that's just an admirer. So one of the things I love the most about it is that freedom, that there are no rules, that, you can push the boundary into any type of level. You can get super campy for that moment, or you can be super dramatic. You can bring it in, or you can really let everything shine. You've got to be super quick on your feet, but you also got to be demure and hold the room with a gaze. So it just seems
hey, they're not all gay. Sometimes there's bisexuals in the room.
I said gaze. Oh yeah. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Welcome to the joke.
But that's the best part about it though. And that's, one of those things that I love so much, that I find it interesting when someone inside the community goes, yeah, I make sure that it's not, it doesn't get all, cookie cutter, or, I'm so used to hearing that in the music industry. I'm so used to seeing that like in the comedic industry. It's just very interesting to hear that from the drag industry, where I thought was like, seriously, I think the only 2 art forms left in the world are like drag and I think mathematics.
Mathematics?
Yeah.
I feel like we could spend the rest of this episode discussing that statement. So let's put a pin in that and talk about that another time. But I
agree.
Very curious.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
Very curious about that
1000%
one.
agree with you. Yeah, I am a little bit curious about that one too, but I think it'd be a whole 2 episodes of just
yeah, no,
that.
we could really get into mathematics as art. So let's talk about drag as art, because the only test I've ever failed was my 10th grade math midterm. I was very proud of it. My parents put it up on the fridge because it was the first test I ever failed.
All right, since I'm on piggyback off what you just said, how does drag reflect your personal identity?
Well, so here's the fun part. I was raised by clowns.
Gotcha.
So, and they were party clowns who were late 70s New York City punks. So, I really had no choice in the matter. This was my fate. I have become my parents. I'm just gayer.
Okay.
Or maybe just more upfront with your gayness.
Well, no, here's the thing. My father was always the flamboyant one, and his bi brother was always the really like he went to MIT and got a nice like smart person degree and not an art degree. So the genes just completely flipped that around.
Nice.
So I've never understood the concept of gender. I borrowed my dad's Mrs. Doubtfire dress when I played Aunt Eller in my 8th grade production of Oklahoma. So, my identity is an amorphous blob of entertainment, and I am here to entertain the masses whether they want to be or not.
I feel like that's the title of your book. It all started.
That is a very long title of
Yeah,
of a
well,
book.
I just want to if you break it up into you start
It feels like a choose your own adventure.
yeah.
I
So
should
it's
do a
definitely
choose your own adventure.
yeah, you definitely should do it. You should do like a memoir, but a choose your own adventure memoir. I think that'd be fun.
Oh, Neil Patrick Harris did that.
Did he? Of course he did. I have to go find that.
I never read it, but there is a timeline where he just becomes a famous magician and doesn't bother doing any acting, which is pretty funny.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. But see, now as you do go through and there's the evolution of the art itself and how you push the boundaries. It's not just you pushing the boundaries of like letting other types of performers. You push the boundaries in your performance as well.
Yeah.
And now like I said, I personally have always looked at it as, that the uncle vibe, kind of aspect, or like the I've only really seen you hosting, and you give such a Chuck Willery type of hosting.
I love that. I also will accept Gene Rayburn, or
Nice.
If I'm having a really good day, I would like to think Monty Hall, but I might be blowing some hot air up my own behind that way. But
well, I mean,
someday.
Monty. Well, that's the thing. You always have to have that end goal, and Monty should be everyone's end goal. And
I mean, fashion wise, I think I'm getting pretty close.
Yes, fashion wise, I have to say, it's the jacket that you showed up in at Three Sheets was definitely pushed that way, and not in the Monty Hall way, but it definitely pushed in a fashion type of way. How important is that industry to drag and what you do?
What, fashion?
Yeah.
So, I think in the sense of Devil Wears Prada, everything is affected by fashion. One person uses cerulean in a runway and then blah, 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 trickle down in economics, but fashion. Now, in terms of me particularly, my vibe is essentially like if a gnome fell into the dumpster behind a thrift shop and just kind of grabbed everything that was cool looking, but then somehow looked stylish while wearing it. So I might not be the person to ask about fashion, but there are definitely trends that go through the scene, and there are a lot of people who sew their own things, a lot of people who alter items, and a lot of people who just find something cool and cheap and cover it in rhinestones and customize it. So I think it's all about finding your own fashion, because if I tried to dress like 90% of the looks on Drag Race, I'd look really funny.
Well, you don't look funny to me on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, and my partner in crime in Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ BlueZ. Frankie, when building a new number or concept, what is your creative process like?
Ooh, that's a fun one. So I usually have my music in my car is more or less on shuffle. It used to be on an iPod Classic with 20,000 songs that I just had completely on shuffle. And I really wish that thing's hard drive hadn't just fritzed out. But on the other hand, it was 20 years old or something like that. So I understand. But the streaming services will have to do. And so sometimes a song will come on and I'll just realize, I'm like, hey, wait a second, this would be really funny if. And then I might think of a series of of songs. So, for example, a really simple one is every year I like to do a history night where people do numbers as historical figures because one, educational to some extent, and two, people get to go out of their comfort zone. And one, the first one we did was, I think, a week after Barbie and Oppenheimer had come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, yeah, I'm going to be Oppenheimer. And so I went through, I used a bunch of the dialogue from the trailer because obviously I couldn't rip anything from the movie that had just come out a few days ago. And I used Boom 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 by the Venga Boys.
Okay.
And then, do you remember Pigeon John with the bomb?
Mm-hmm.
It is one of those things you have to talk to me about.
I'm the
so I can
bomb,
remember.
I'm about to blow up. Ooh, I'm the
Sounds
bomb,
familiar.
I'm about to blow up.
Sounds familiar.
So I did that. I put together a bunch, and I was Oppenheimer. I had a trench coat, but then it was all Barbie and Ken, and I had these hot pink like athletic shorts. It was really silly. And so it's basically just whatever makes me laugh in the moment. And then other times I might not put together a whole mix. I did a performance last year as a woman just because it would be funny. And it was to a ballad called Hamburger Help Me. And I got a big petticoated dress, dressed like a little housewife with a big wig that made me look like Kamala Harris. And so, not even a big wig, just a normal wig. And a bunch of little hamburger helper gloves tied all around the skirt of the dress. Mm-hmm. And I served face. I emoted. I pulled eye drops out from my cleavage right on stage, and while making eye contact with the other performers, put eye drops in my eyes. And the crowd was very confused, but they were enjoying it. I have a little series. It's not regularly scheduled, but we've had 2 of them so far, and there will be more at Trevi Lounge, that is called Get Off My Lawn. And it is a series of shows where I play the out of touch dad, uncle, old man character, and everyone else on the cast is a bunch of alt and punk and emo and goth kids, and they just all come, and I'm like, I don't understand you kids. And I've had a lot of fun with that theme. I found a cover of Bring Me to Life in the style of Creed. It was
oh no
yeah
Oh no.
Yeah, that was the reaction of the entire audience when it got to the chorus and they realized what I had been lip syncing to in a giant plaid shirt while I'm walking around looking like I'm like 6 beers in at the barbecue.
Oh my. How do you skirt that line of complete and total ridiculousness and performance art?
I am not particularly coordinated, so I figure you might as well just go all in. I am self-aware of how ridiculous I am. I just do not care. I go, hey, you're right. I am ridiculous. I'm from New York. What's your problem? Like, do you think I didn't look in the mirror before I left the house wearing 7 different patterns that do not match? I know I look ridiculous, and I also look great. So, I've always felt like if somebody has an issue with my drag, then it's a good thing that I'm hosting and brought a bunch of other types of performers with me, because they make up for whatever I'm not doing.
You performed in spaces that uplift queer youth. How important is it to you to be that representation?
There was a tiny little stop in the audio on my end for a second. I thought you were saying that I performed in space. And
oh, no. No.
I was really excited to hear that story.
Oh, no. I'm going to restate the question then. My apologies for the mishap. I said you performed in spaces that uplift queer youth. How important is it to you
Got it.
to be that representation?
I think honestly, every time that I get to be the first drag experience for a teenager or a kid, it absolutely blows my mind every time, especially those teenagers, because, to a little kid, they at a story time, they're all amazing. And I love those kids at story time. But I also remember what it was like to be a toddler surrounded by clowns. And I understand that the difference between Cinderella, a random drag queen, and Ronald McDonald is very different in the eyes of a 3-year-old. They're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
They are all just, oh, look, colorful adult. But for a teenager, I see that look. It's so easy to clock a kid who's looking and going, wait, that's a thing? That's what? And seeing kids see that representation, because like me, there are a lot of kids who have only seen that one definition of drag, less so now, because there has been more diversity in the post-COVID drag scene for sure. But I worked in a school for almost 8 years before I quit to do this. And I feel like I've done more good for youth in drag than I ever did working in tech support at a school, which is weird. I've done a lot of work with Q Plus, which is a wonderful organization that provides resources for queer and trans youth. And I've also worked with a lot of different pride centers across the state. And there are so many wonderful resources out there that I think a lot of teenagers, if you're in a less than accepting environment, being able to access those resources online is amazing. Now, what I will say is that if you are a teenager and you are for some reason listening to the radio, which is cool, please do not instant message me. Please do not direct message me unless it is a very specific, clear question. I am not chatting with you if you are a teenager. I have been a teenager. I have been a teenager. I did not like chatting with teenagers then either. And I'm not going to start now.
Speaking of talking with people, you served on Stamford, Connecticut's Board of Representatives. How do drag and civil engagement overlap in your life?
So, drag is, there's a lot in common between local politics and local drag, which I'm sure comes as a total shock, but both scenes have both scenes have a lot of people who are very self-absorbed and want to be the center of attention at all times, which is again total shocker. So the difference though is that at least for drag I get paid for it, and I actually sometimes make a difference. Whereas when I was on the Board of Representatives, it would be 3 hours of debating whether or not to rename an intersection. And it would be on a Monday or Tuesday night. And I never felt like any of my votes or discussions actually made any difference. So I have so much respect for the people who are able to stick through it, because we need people who are able to stick through it. But I could not manage that. However, I have seen a lot of good work getting done on the state level and in some cities more than other cities. And it is so important for people to stay up to date on local politics. I do read the weekly or monthly bulletins from the city committee and the Board of Representatives. I skim them. And I think that is an important thing for people to do. I also, even though I have no longer been going to anything that really requires meetings because I ran away and never looked back. I do keep an eye on, there are a lot of bills that are getting proposed to state legislature, and that's a very important thing for people to be able to do. Let me see if I can find the website off the top
take
of
your
my
time.
head.
Take your time.
The Connecticut General Assembly website, the CGA, they have all of the proposals and the things that are going to be going up to the board, to the House of Representatives in Connecticut. And making comments, you can comment on most of them online, and they do read the public commentary. And sometimes all it takes is a couple of well-worded emotional appeals to sway a vote or two. So that is a really easy way to get involved, especially for those of us who absolutely hate calling people on the phone.
How can venues and audience better support drag kings and queens and non-binary, if I could barely speak, performers?
A couple of ways that you can support the community at large is, if you're going to a show to support a specific performer because they're the performer you totally wanted to see, it's great for you to tell that to the performer, but it's even better for you to tell that to the venue. If you go, oh, I would love it if you brought in more drag kings. I would love it if you brought in more of this. I would love it if you brought in someone like so-and-so. That is a wonderful way for audience members to support that diversity in venues, because venues will care more if it comes from a paying customer than if it comes from someone saying, hey, book me. I can't imagine why. Another thing is, try to diversify the shows you're going to. As great as it is when I see my friends come to 4 of my shows in a month, it's okay if you come to 1 or 2 of my shows and then go support someone else on a different date. That's fine. I think I personally do not have the opportunity to go and support other drag shows very often because I either am performing myself or I am recovering and tired and don't want to leave the house because I am old and sleepy. But if there's other performers that you want to support, a big part of how I choose who to put on my shows is, man, I want to go see that person. Well, okay, I'm going to bring them to me. And so just supporting that, making sure if you have the funds to tip performers, because when you break it down by hour, I'm sure that none of us are making minimum wage half the time. Like when you take into account the driving, the makeup, the setup, the washing, everything. So tip a performer so that, we all need to get fast food on the way home.
I respect that.
It's always, I'm not going to do it. And then it's 11:45 and I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Being a performer for so long, what has changed for the better or for the worse?
So I started doing drag in 2018. And I only had the opportunity to perform maybe 4 or 5 times in my first year because there were so few opportunities. And I live in Stamford, and I wasn't going to drive up to Hartford on a Thursday night when I had work at 7:30 the next morning in Stamford. It just wasn't feasible for my life. So now, because of Wacky Wednesdays, I have seen so many people who, in their first year of performing, have managed to hit the stage 30-something times between my open stage and going to Hartford and having other opportunities and getting bookings. When I started, I feel like there were maybe 4 or 5 showrunners in the entire state.
Wow.
And everybody had to hope that those showrunners liked them. And then there were just so fewer people, fewer venues. And now the amount of dedicated queer spaces hasn't really gone up, but the amount of venues putting on queer events definitely has.
That's good.
There are a number of restaurants I've done bingos or brunches at, and sometimes places want to have a one-off event or what, and so there's just a lot more variety. It used to be that most shows were at 11:30 at night, and now many shows are at 11:30 at night, but there are now a lot more shows that are at 9:30 or I'm still trying to push to get people to actually go to 7:30 p.m. shows. I don't think it's going to happen, but I really want it to.
I feel that'll work with a good meal.
There you go.
That's
a good
the
idea.
thing is, if any restaurants want to put on a dinner and a show, please reach out to me, because I love doing brunches, but I would love being able to sleep in a little bit more.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm very bad at not just telling the straight up truth. I mean,
No. We
enjoy
appreciate
the
that.
evening
We really do.
experience.
That's what we're here for.
That good lighting. Actually, it is good lighting if we have a nice evening show in the summertime. Just saying, get a photographer.
Do you see younger generations of queer performers shifting or expanding the art form?
Oh, yeah. And when I say younger, I don't necessarily mean in age, because there are people who start super young. There are people who start older, and it's really how long you've been doing it to an extent.
Fair enough.
Some people start and they kind of start 2 or 3 levels up because it's, oh, you have 15 years of cheerleader experience. Of course you're amazing at choreography. Also, I hate you. Now, like, I'm sorry, humans don't bend like that. Are you a Barbie doll? Because that's how my Barbies always bent. And then they'd break in half, and then I'd get in trouble. I wouldn't get in trouble. They would break, though. But I have seen a lot of newer performers really doing, people will do genres of music that I can't name, because apparently they keep on coming up with names of genres. Like, indie sleaze is a genre now.
Yes. Indie sleaze. So
indie sleaze?
Indie sleaze. Yeah. It's kind of like shoegaze, but it's a little bit dirtier.
I just thought it was like late 2000s indie, like guy on a guitar, like OK Go.
Oh, is that what? See, I heard it was. I don't know anymore.
So we have two different definitions.
I thought that it was like when the music you'd have in an iPod commercial.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Okay,
I don't know, but clearly none of us are qualified to talk on the subject of indie sleaze. So let's move on.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Well, I'm never qualified to talk on the subject of qualifying music into categories. I'm like, it's music. Just listen to it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's debatable, but I have seen someone lip sync to dubstep though, and that was pretty great. Speaking of debatable music.
Wow.
Was it more like a beatbox though?
No, like the dubstep was
lip
playing,
sync.
and they were lip syncing to the.
That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I personally have recently. I don't know when I'm next going to do it, but the next time I have too many people booked on Wacky Wednesday, I need to do a short number so that we get through on time. I recently remembered that Van Morrison has a song called Ringworm, and it is 1.5 minutes long and has no rhymes and is just Van Morrison telling someone that they have ringworm. And I'm going to put on a doctor's outfit, and maybe I'll be Dr. Mario, and everyone will expect video game references, but I will give them none.
Nice. You'll be Dr. Mario just in name.
Name. And in mustache.
And in mustache. You're gonna go with the mustache?
Yeah, I'll do the mustache. Okay. Why not?
All right. With the hat though? Are you gonna do the hat?
Maybe I'll just put a CD on my forehead.
There you go.
Okay. There you go. That works.
Fair enough. What does Pride Month mean to you personally, and how do you celebrate on stage?
So Pride Month this year especially is Pride is always a celebration of revolution, of being yourself. The Stonewall riots were because did not back down.
Mm,
And we are currently in a time where people are feeling like some pressure to back down. And
mm.
so every year for the past 3 years, I've gotten my hair dyed rainbow for June. And I'm actually going in on Tuesday to get my hair rainbowified for this Pride season.
Mhm.
Um, so very excited for that. And it's just about being loudly who you are, even if people have an issue with it. As I mentioned earlier, I am from New York, which means I
Mhm.
am completely immune to criticism. And so I I got a big mouth. I keep getting handed a microphone. Pride is about taking advantage of that fact until that microphone is forcibly taken away from me, or somebody pulls out a very, very long cane and just swoops me off stage by my waist.
Being so vocal, being so out the box, what would you say to someone who doesn't understand or respect drag as an art form?
Um, Generally, okay. Yeah,
Fair enough.
it is not my job to justify. I don't understand how I am able to do this full time. I
Hmm.
pay my bills by putting on makeup, looking good, and moving my mouth to other people's music.
On WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Go ahead, Frankie.
So smart.
I do not understand. I cannot justify that to somebody who doesn't understand it because at the end of the day, how do you justify mimes?
Mm,
Mhm.
How do you justify clowns? How do you justify any sort of entertainment? What I do is I bring people together.
Mhm.
I build for the community. One thing that I forgot to mention is
yeah,
at Wacky Wednesdays, we have been collecting food and hygiene product donations for the Bridgeport Pride Center food pantry
that's awesome.
since January, and that food pantry is now very well stocked. So if there is anyone in the area who is food insecure, that is a resource that is available, and anyone who wants to help out it should look out to food pantries in wherever you are because a lot of people are food insecure these days, y'all. Um, but I forget what you asked because I just started talking about that instead.
I think you answered my question. It was the craziest part.
Cool.
But as I move on, um, what's your besides giving back to your community, what's your proudest moment about being a performer?
Ooh, ooh. Um, well, I would say this year I've had a lot of kind of full circle moments
Mm,
happen with my drag, which has been really, really kind of neat. Um, I recently reconnected with a performer I used to see in Manhattan all the time
Mhm.
in 2016, 2017. Her name is Daphne Always. And I would see her hosting cabaret style shows back almost 10 years ago. And
mm,
I randomly ended up I was at her bar because I was nearby on a Tuesday night and I found out she was hosting an open stage.
Mhm.
And I just happened to be there in full drag. I was dressed like an elderly man, but I was still in full drag. And so I got to perform on stage with the person that I used to see before I did drag. And that was really, really neat. We recently had a performer come up to Trevi Lounge for our Pride kickoff event at the end of May. Shaquita Hall from New York, who I used to see all the time in 2015, 2016. And so things like that. I'm going to be one of the co-hosts for Triangle Community Center's Pride in the Park in Norwalk this year. And that was my first paid gig ever in 2019. So just a lot of big full circle moments, a lot of, oh wow, I'm that person I used to want to be.
nice. Any dream
And
venue?
what dream venue?
Yeah.
Oh, ooh. Well, here's the thing. My dream venue is any venue in a city I haven't been with travel and accommodations covered so that I get a free trip.
Mm.
I
Nice.
I think that would be my ideal dream venue, because then I get a free trip out of it.
Right.
But if I had to say a specific venue, I would love to do a show in like an old abandoned insane asylum.
Wow.
I think
Okay,
that
that's
would
not
be.
what I was expecting.
I think
That was a
would
180
be,
from me.
that would be so wild. I don't know
Okay.
about. I'm sure I would need to find one that actually has active owners and is kept clean and stuff. So I don't really know how that would work
Well,
legally
like a
speaking. But
Halloween type of
I
vibe,
don't know. What
or
if I
just
just,
like a creep, like a
have it in spring so the weather's better?
yeah, but wow.
Yeah, I don't really, the theme is secondary for that. I just think it would be a really neat venue, or in an amusement park during the off season.
Okay.
Okay.
Um just weird places. But
Nah, that still kind of threw me
yeah.
off. I thought you were gonna say like a MSG or Madison Square Garden, something of that nature.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Um I I don't mind large shows. They're fun, they're great, but I really like being able to interact with people.
Mm.
I like a small show. And so even as an audience member, I don't know if I'm ever gonna see a show at MSG unless it gets paid for me, because the idea of spending that much money to just be in the nosebleed seats and not do anything, I could not
Better
in good
experience.
conscience ever charge that money
Gotcha.
for someone. It's really just the vibes, man. My ideal gig is one where everybody's just having a good time and is supportive, and maybe they give me food. Yeah, I like gigs at places with food,
Yes.
because then I get food. I'm sorry. I have priorities, okay?
Nothing to apologize
The
about.
best part
Nothing
about
at
that
all.
for the people that are just listening to this and don't have the visual aspect, it was the drift off into space that you would do where you like look off the camera left. You're like, and the food. It was amazing.
Unfortunately, I gotta wrap it up. I gotta pull that
Yep.
curtain. But this final moment is for you, Frankie. My last question for you. What do you want people to feel when they see you perform? And please plug yourself. Plug the Rocky Wednesdays. Plug everything you got coming up in the rest of 2025 that you can mention. And social media,
All
everything.
right.
This time is yours.
Okay. Well, first off, hi again. I'm Frankie Cyanide, and you can find me on Instagram at Frankie M Cyanide. That's FrankiEM, as in meh, cyanide, CYANIDE. That's Frankie M Cyanide on Instagram. Now, I want people to feel confused and maybe a little afraid when they see me, whether it be because they do not understand my outfit, or because they have not heard the song I'm performing to in about 20 years and it has unlocked a memory they had forgotten. But where to find me in June? I will be hosting North Haven Pride's kickoff Pride show this on the first Saturday of the month. That is June 7th at 12% Beer Project in North Haven. That is from 7 to 10 and 21 plus, but it is free. I will be hosting Wacky Wednesday every Wednesday at Trevi Lounge in Fairfield. And on the 18th, it is our annual-ish theme night, which is any language but English. Everyone will be lip syncing to songs from around the world because we get enough English in our lives and want to celebrate diversity. I will be co-hosting the Triangle Community Center's Pride in the Park in Norwalk on the 14th On the 15th, which is Father's Day, I will be having a daddy versus father show off against Dom Perignon, my arch nemesis, at Trevi Lounge. We have multiple terrible duets planned. Please come. I am going to New Hampshire on the 16th. I don't think anyone listening is going to follow me up there. I will be hosting a bingo at Three Sheets in New Haven on the 26th, which is a Thursday. On the 21st, I might be at Bridgeport Pride, and I'll be down on Long Island. And I think I'm doing something in Portchester on the 22nd. And on the 28th, there's Waterbury Pride. Oh, I think that kind of covers June. I am busy all the time. I have a brunch coming up in New Haven in
That's
July.
awesome.
So just follow me at Frankie M. Cyanide on the internet to find out more about where to find me.
Frankie, thank you for a great conversation. We appreciate this.
No, thank you. Thank you. You saw me pound 200 milligrams of caffeine during that interview, so I could go for the rest of the day.
Nice.
Myself, Preston, and my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ BlueZ. You listen to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, where we bring you the voices that shape our community. Until next time, keep celebrating diversity and embracing the art that unites us all. We appreciate everyone. Thank you so much, and we love you. That's it.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know.